everybody, hope that you're all okay. Now, as you can see, I'm in my dressing gown, which means that I'm very nearly ready for bed. But just before I go, I would like to share one of my favourite stories with you. And this is called The Magic Place. And it's by an author called Chris Wormel, and it's a really lovely story, so I'd like to share a chapter with you. Now, I'm only going to share the first chapter with you, so if you like what you hear and you'd like to borrow the book, please feel free to come to my classroom and you are more than welcome to borrow it. So chapter 1, Pepper. In the middle of a great black city of smoke and soot and grime, there once lived a girl called Clementine. Here is a picture of the great black city. And down there, just under the bridge, at the far end of the dark narrow street, is the house where Clementine lives. Clementine was an orphan, and she lived in that tall narrow house with her aunt and Uncle Grimble and a large white cat called Gilbert. He was a rather special cat. In fact, he was an extraordinary cat, as we shall soon discover. And if you look again at that first picture, you might spot him down under the bridge as he walks along the road to that house down on the end. Outside the house, he stopped, and he peers into a dirty little window at the bottom of the wall, just above the pavement. And what does he see? He sees Clementine, sitting on the edge of her bed. For the dark and dingy cellar beyond that window is actually her bedroom. She has scruffy short hair and wears a raggedy dress and shoes that are pretty much worn out. And now she jumps up. She can hear the heavy clump of her aunt's footsteps descending the cellar stairs, and then the jingle of a large bunch of keys, as if a prison officer were lifting them from a belt. A key is slowly slotted into the lock, and the door handle begins to turn. Clementine bites her lip as she lives in mortal fear of her terrible aunt. Aunt Familiar always wore black, and because of her poor eyesight, she wore spectacles with such thick lenses her eyes looked enormous and appeared to jump out of her head. Clementine thought she looked like a large, fat beetle. Her Uncle Rufus had a very large mouth and lots of teeth, and Clementine thought he looked rather like a crocodile. Would you like an aunt and uncle like these two? No, neither would I. And though looks can sometimes be deceptive, in this case, they're not. These two were fiends. They were about as wicked and cruel as you could get. Uncle Rufus would sometimes beat Clementine with his heavy walking stick, while Aunt Familiar often caught her by the ears and shook her head so violently it was a wonder her ears didn't come off. They were certainly stretched. At least, they looked stretched. Anyway, stretched or not, it was a horrible thing to do. Grabbing someone by the ear was about the meanest, cruelest thing Aunt Familiar could think of doing to anyone, which just shows what sort of person she was. And Clementine certainly didn't deserve it. She was not a naughty child. Well, not really. No more naughty than any child ought to be, though she did once accidentally sprinkle a little pepper on their porridge. Quite a lot of pepper, actually, but my goodness, they deserved it. She was punished, of course, but then Clementine was always punished, whether she did anything bad or not. The slightest mistake would provoke an alarming outburst, like accidentally dropping a single pea. And since it was she who did all the chores around the house, the cooking, the cleaning, and all of the washing up, she was bound to make the odd mistake. She was even punished for things that were not her fault. If anything went missing in that house, or was broken, or cracked, or split, or torn, or spoilt, it was always blamed on Clementine, though it was very rarely her fault, and she was always punished. Is it any wonder that she bit her lip at the sound of her aunt's footsteps descending the cellar stairs. And is it any wonder that she was sometimes driven to play little tricks on her wicked aunt and uncle? If she was going to be punished anyway, she thought, she may as well do something worth being punished for. And jolly good luck to her, I say. I wonder why Clementine's aunt and uncle were so nasty. Perhaps they had a horrible time when they were younger. Little monster, her Aunt Familiar would scream, or ogre, or vile little beast. And her Uncle Rufus would growl, devil, demon, and rogue. All words that suited them far more than they suited poor Clementine. They hardly ever called her by her name. And when they did, do you want to know what they called her? They called her Oya, which wasn't really a name at all, but came from them shouting, Oi, you, whenever they wanted her. I suspect they didn't even know her real name was Clementine, which was odd. But then, neither did Clementine, which was even odder. So that's chapter 1. So if you enjoyed that and you would like to borrow this book, just come to my classroom and ask me, and you are more than welcome to borrow it anytime. So I hope you enjoyed that story. It's a really, really lovely story, so hopefully it will spur someone to come and ask me to borrow it. So take care, and I'll see you soon.